rebel force has penetrated the shield and landed on Endor.
This is where the fun begins.
A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away.
This is Rebel Force Radio.
Your source for the Force.
Star Wars news and commentary.
With Jason Swank and Jimmy Mack.
I've seen Star Wars 500 times.
Star Wars #1!
This station is now the ultimate power in the universe. I suggest we use it.
Now it's time for Rebel Force Radio.
We would be honored if you would join us.
Well, at least what they showed us at D23 this year is all real. It wasn't a bunch of new projects that were most likely not going to happen. Got to see a little clip of the Mandalorian and Grogu. That was pretty cool. Well, I shouldn't say that I saw it because that sort of outs the people that were illegally recording it. I think it was largely on the honor system there. But I did see that. We're going to be talking about that Skeleton Crew trailer. It was just last week. We were going through the photos that were released exclusively to people. Got some character names, some production photos, and but this is full-blown trailer here. We'll be doing our Rebel Force Radio patented shot-by-shot breakdown of that. Seems to be delivering on the promises that everything we've kind of heard up to this point. It seems to be resembling that quite a bit here. Also, Andor Season 2, that's going to be upon us here before we know it. It was great to see Diego Luna out there talking about that. But there was no other talk of films or TV series, no talk of Lando. There was no talk of any of these other projects. And I look at that as a good thing. I look at that as a good thing personally here on Rebel Force Radio. Thank you all so much for being with us this week on the weekly podcast. Appreciate it very much. If you're new to the program, I'd like to introduce you to myself. My name is Jason, and with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Yeah, we're in the wake of D23, and there were announcements. I like how you said, Jason, you know. We got announcements for things we know are going to happen.
Yes.
As opposed to Kathleen Kennedy standing in front of a screen flashing up logos for things that will never happen, like Rogue Squadron, Rangers of the New Republic, the Lando series, which we know is DOA. However, what we don't really know is how far Donald Glover and his brother are as far as developing a Lando film. Now, that could still actually be happening. I know a lot of people were jumping to conclusions with some interviews that Justin Simeon did, the guy who was the showrunner for the now dead Lando series, saying that he laments that it's over and he feels like it's a great loss that he's not doing it. But that still doesn't rule out a Lando feature film being produced by Donald Glover and his brother, at least being developed and written by those two. So that's a wait and see kind of thing. If I was a betting man, which I really am not, but I don't really gamble, but I would put down top dollar betting against the Lando concept becoming a film or a series or anything, maybe a comic book. When it's all said and done. Written by Donald Glover and his brother. I can see the headlines now.
I agree with you.
But also, you know, some
totally
other things that have gone by the wayside, too. Or, you know, non-Star Wars things like Children of Blood and Stone. And whatever happened to that Droid's Tale adventure.
The Droids thing.
That one very quietly fell into the abyss. We don't know what happened. I mean, who got screwed in that one? Yeah. Those creatives aren't talking right now. Maybe it's this epic thing that takes a decade to develop. I don't know. It could still be very much alive, but it never gets talked about. It hasn't been talked about since it was announced. What kind of smoke and mirrors show is going on here?
What's baffling to me is they took the time to create logos for these things, to give them a sense of reality. And the truth is anything but. But I would much rather, Jim, I'd much rather have a presentation like we got, which is just talking about what's real, what's coming, giving us some sneak peeks. I don't understand, honestly, why something like that Mandalorian and Grogu, that very, very quick video, isn't released. Like, what's the harm in releasing that? Why do I have to watch it on some bootlegged video? Thankfully, we got it, but what? I mean, what's the difference between me actually seeing it and seeing a word-for-word live blog or live tweet of what was seen in it? I still think this secrecy thing, they're just so addicted to this. It's
a Lucasfilm thing. Geez, Jason, you and me were taking heat from Star Wars Celebration's earliest days. Like, I'm talking like Star Wars Celebration 2010, you know? And we were saying no fan left behind with our coverage. And we actually got pushback from Lucasfilm saying, well, if you say no fan left behind, then you're diminishing the value of the entertainment the fans who actually did attend receive. And I think that's kind of a joke.
It's a total joke.
It's a total joke.
Everyone would rather be there. If they had the opportunity and the means, they would rather be there.
You know, what, you think you're showing them exclusive footage? Like you say, Jason, it shows up in crummy-looking cell phone footage and stuff like that. Just loosen up a little bit. If you're going to promote an upcoming production in front of an audience, make it the biggest audience you possibly can get. And people won't be complaining who are there at the Anaheim Convention Center because they're caught up in the energy and the excitement of actually being there. You can't replicate that at home. You can't create the energy in a convention center room, in your living room, or sitting there on the toilet watching your iPhone. It's impossible.
There were many
That's the value.
There were many times when we were just a block away from a Star Wars Celebration in our hotel, watching the stream, eating $15 omelets.
$50 omelets.
Oh, $50. Mine was only $15. Yeah. How good was yours?
No. I paid the bill. I know how much.
Oh, $50 omelets. Wow, that's those Orlando prices and Anaheim prices. Right across the street, essentially. And I still had FOMO. I still wanted to be there. Right. Now, it was better for us, oftentimes, because we had to cover so much to watch it on the stream. But, it's the same idea that they dealt with with sports radio. You'd have those greedy owners of sports teams who would black out the television or the radio broadcast saying, wow, if this city doesn't care enough to show up in the arena or in the stadium, then they're not going to listen to it on the radio or watch it on TV. And actually, the opposite is true. The more you get it on TV, the more you get it on radio, the better attendance is. People want to come and see it.
What a great comparison you're making there, because I spent many years as a Chicago Blackhawks fan, while old man Bill Wirtz, owner of the team, would refuse to air home games on local television. The blackouts, they were all blacked out.
Yeah.
Stop blacking us out, Lucasfilm. We don't want to be blacked out no more. You need to reach the biggest audience to promote.
Shutting people out of your message is the exact opposite of I think, of good marketing and PR. But what do I know? I say bring back Steve Sansweet. Fan relations.
It hasn't been the same without Steve Sansweet at Lucasfilm. No, it hasn't been the same. And we've also noticed Lucasfilm on a whole getting extremely out of touch with the actual fan base.
Very. Yeah, very out of touch.
You can debate that until you're red in the face, but we all know the truth.
Well, they ignore this podcast, which is still the most popular Star Wars podcast to be found anywhere. And by doing so, they often ignore our listeners, which I think are a very accurate cross-section of Star Wars fans. everything that we see in terms of ratings with these Disney Plus series stack up to what we can see with our own numbers on our after shows and things like that. I think we're very representative. Our audience is very representative. Coming up later on in the program, we've got In the Cantina with special guests, the authors of the Star Wars Radio Dramas book. We told you about it some time ago, but now it's available. We've got Maria Jose Tenuto and Jon Tenuto, a couple of great academics, and they've taken upon themselves to chronicle the making of the Star Wars radio dramas. And Jim, I can only imagine how special those radio dramas are to you when you talk about how the infusion, the combination of your two passions, radio and Star Wars, I mean, it doesn't come any closer than that project.
Well, that is true. And that's what keeps me coming back to the radio dramas. And it was a huge inspiration on Kyle FJ and myself when we were creating Smuggler's Run and Smuggler's Gambit for Star Wars Celebration. Back when we put on those shows, we did a trilogy of Star Wars audio dramas live, very much influenced by the NPR Star Wars radio dramas. So yeah, Jason, I think you're absolutely right. It's an infusion of two of my favorite things. You put peanut butter in my chocolate. You put chocolate in my peanut butter. Hey, two great tastes taste great together.
All right, let's kick things off and start with a little listener mail. How about that? We got a voicemail waiting.
Yes.
You must contact me.
Play back the entire message.
What message?
Message after the message.
The Emperor commands you to make contact with him. It's a trick. Send no reply.
Hey guys, hey Arthur, I'm going to try to make this quick because I got cut off one of the times. So, with Star Wars, with lately of this big the streaming series, we've been seeing this big picture of cloning and immortality with Palpatine. I'm not going to try to fully recoup everything because we all have seen what's happening with Bad Batch, with Project Necromancer, with Acolyte. It's the virgins in the Force, and Plagueis seeing that. In Mando, it's the same thing, Project Necromancer, but this time Palpatine's not alive. It's after the fact. In Phantom Menace, Shmi with the virgin birth leading into Episode 3 with Vader. This is the big part, Vader, knowing that Palpatine can try to save life. And Vader also being told by Palpatine, you and me are going to be the ones figuring it out. I didn't figure it out yet. You and me, when he tells me he's Darth Vader, he said, I'm going to need your help. So pretty much why I'm calling is because I just want to say, what if Vader is trying to still help Palpatine bring back Padme? Is this on his mind? Is this anything, he has ambition for? In Obi-Wan series, he doesn't seem to at all. He doesn't talk about it. In Bad Batch, it's all just Palpatine with the cloning. But, I mean, if we were to see an R-rated Darth Vader movie or something, I would love to see Vader trying to still bring back Padme, because that's why he becomes Darth Vader in the first place. He wants to save Padme's life. And for it to just kind of go right down the drain, him saying, no, maybe he is trying to, his crazy mind, clone Padme, bring her back some way. Maybe on Mustafar, he's got his own little section for cloning. I don't know, guys. I would love to hear your thoughts on this. It's, again, a big picture thing for me in Star Wars when Palpatine was thrown down and killed, and the blue mist came out of him. I always wanted him to come back. I always thought, wow, that's him bringing his essence somewhere. He's still alive. As a kid, I liked that, and it was cool they brought him back. It was just bad how they did it. I think they'll execute it a little better, and maybe even bring Darth Vader into the mix with his ambition to bring Padme back. I love you guys. I've been a long-time listener. You guys have saved me in my car rides. I love you. And again, this is a big picture thing in Star Wars. I would love to hear your thoughts. I would love to hear what you have to say. And hopefully we see more of these breadcrumbs being dropped in the future. Love you guys.
Hey, thanks, buddy. Right back at you. Love you, too. Thanks for listening. So, Jimmy Mack, a clone of Padme. Is it possible that was ever or could ever be a goal of Vader's? Now, the deal that he strikes with Sidious/Palpatine in the prequels is that he will save Padme from dying. There's not talk about if she dies, we bring her back. And our caller is right. He says, us together, we can discover the secret. So it was all a preventative move. Anakin fell to the dark side to save Padme preventatively because he had the pictures in his head of her dying. It was a premonition, and it's exactly pretty much how she died. But this idea of cloning and bringing people back from the dead, I'm not aware of this, as far as I know, ever entering into Vader's consciousness or any goals for Darth Vader. I know with the Charles Soule Vader comic book, Vader was haunted by a character who was one of Padme's handmaidens. So she bore an uncanny resemblance, right, to Padme.
Yeah,
but outside of that, it seems to me that his belief that she's dead is what caused the final fissure cut from anything remotely light. I don't know. That's my take. But
when he was sort of influencing Anakin in those early days, he was dangling that carrot in front of him, because he knew that Anakin was getting eaten up by this vision he had of Padme dying. And so Palpatine saw that as an opportunity. Hey, my master, Darth Plagueis, he was really messing around with the whole natural life-death cycle and tried to manipulate it the best he could. And I sure would like to learn more about what that old man was looking into, that old mun, was trying to discover. And maybe with Anakin, I can actually do that. Maybe Palpatine was sort of feeding his own desires a little bit too when he started dangling that carrot in front of Anakin, the ability to cheat death. Let's figure it out, you and me, buddy. And Anakin was just so overwhelmed because he was having these visions of Padme's death. But at the end of it all, Palpatine makes Anakin, now fully immersed in the Darth Vader persona, with the black armor and the breathing apparatus and all of that post-Mustafar. Palpatine tells Anakin that he killed Padme. Palpatine makes Anakin believe that he's responsible for the death of Padme.
It seems in your anger, you killed her.
So Anakin loses his mind, trashes the laboratory and the droids, lets out the no, and that's it, man. He's done being Anakin Skywalker at that very moment. He is done with the life of Anakin. And the reason he does that, the reason why Ben Kenobi says he's more machine than man, twisted and evil, the man who was your father exists no longer. The reason Ben said that, and the reason why it's true, is because Anakin Skywalker could not live with the guilt of killing Padme. That's something he couldn't personally continue with, knowing that he killed Padme. So he says to himself, that wasn't me, that was Anakin. And in his own mind, he eliminates Anakin Skywalker 100%, kills Anakin. I mean, this gets reinforced in the original trilogy. It gets reinforced in the Kenobi story.
That name no longer has any meaning for me.
So, and he says to Obi-Wan in the Kenobi series, I killed Anakin.
Right.
You didn't kill Anakin Skywalker. I did. And he says it with a sense of pride.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what he needed. He needed that.
Yeah.
He needed that because he can't exist. He cannot exist in any sort of way, shape, or form, be it as a Jedi Knight or as a guy encased in an iron lung for the rest of his life. The only escape he gets from that is by dipping himself in the Bacta tank. That's a crappy existence. And He's lost all of his limbs. It's just horrendous. He can't breathe on his own.
Well, here's a question, though.
Existence.
Like, why did it never potentially occur to Vader if he's privy to all of this cloning technology and Palpatine's ultimate plan? And I think that's a big if. Why did it never occur to him that maybe he could clone Padme and bring her back?
It's not the same. That's a lack of authenticity for a guy like Vader.
Yeah.
Vader lives in the moments, the real moments, and that's just like giving him a Natalie Portman blow-up doll or something. That's just, it doesn't work.
By the way, that's the name of this week's episode, Natalie Portman blow-up doll.
Keep your voice down so she doesn't.
Oh,
hear
yeah.
and
Oh,
start
God.
calling.
Yeah, we don't need that.
She's going to start rigging up my phone. I'm putting it on. I just put my phone on mute. So you can't call me now, Nat. But I'm just saying that's how I always looked at the psychology of Darth Vader. And yeah, sure, they name him Darth Vader. But he's not Darth. He's not Darth at that moment. I've had this debate with some real hardcore Star Wars fans over the years. He does not become Darth Vader when Palpatine says, henceforth, you'll be known as Darth Vader. Vader, that's who you are. That he doesn't assume the persona and the lifestyle. He's still Anakin. He still answers to Anakin. Padme sees Anakin, and he responds to that. So he's not living that completely separate lifestyle yet.
He's not living his act at that point.
He's yet to mentally exterminate Anakin Skywalker. That happens when Palpatine tells him he killed Padme. His fingerprints are all over her
at his own hand.
As far as he's concerned.
His own hand.
And, Palpatine, from a certain point of view, was telling the truth. I mean,
yes.
Padme did not survive that encounter with Anakin. She eventually passed away.
Right.
But the thing that nobody knows is that she gave birth before she died. And that's kept a secret.
Well, her heart breaking. I know a lot of people thought, myself included for a period of time, that was sort of a weak excuse or a weak cause of death. But this was the love of her life. She sacrificed a lot. They both sacrificed a lot for each other. And her last memory of the love of her life is him choking her. I mean, that's unthinkable to her.
Well, she does say her dying words are, there's still good in her.
No, there is. Right. But
there's
in
still
terms
something
of the
there.
injury, I struggle a little bit with there's still good in him, because wouldn't that give her a reason to live? So I have a little hard time with that line.
Oh, I see. If you're going to say she died from a broken heart.
But she's saying there's still good in him. Obi-Wan, why don't you bring out the good? How come she doesn't want to stay and bring out the good in him? So I do struggle with that a little bit. I can buy the broken heart thing because of how, violently Anakin treats her and how that would break your heart, the love of your life. But there's still good in him. I don't know.
Maybe the revelation or the message that there's still some of the light side existing in Anakin Skywalker. Maybe that didn't hit Padme until her dying breath.
Good point. Yeah.
There's always this talk that the Force was coursing through her system, having twins in her womb.
Ooh. I like that.
The children of the chosen one.
I like that.
She had this divine connection to the Force for a few fleeting moments there at the end. Right. And the last thing that hit her before she passed away was, there's still something about Anakin that exists that's good.
Yeah, that's the Force afterbirth. I think that's what they call it. It's pretty gross to see in real life, but the Force power just
the Force afterbirth. I'm gonna have to look that up in the Star Wars encyclopedia. I don't think there's an entry for that. Just between you and me,
better get Pablo on that. All right. Thanks for the caller. Appreciate it very much. It was
so long story short,
yeah.
he wouldn't be thinking about Padme at all. He completely burned the memory of his former life out of his mind. And you see him even still kind of struggling with that in the Kenobi series until he gets defeated by Obi-Wan a second time and Palpatine reads him the Riot Act.
Yeah.
And Anakin's like, oh my God, why am I chasing these artifacts from Anakin Skywalker's life? It's over. It's over. And he fully becomes committed to that. And Padme was a very important factor in Anakin Skywalker's life. And Darth Vader didn't want to have anything to do with that stuff. Anything to do. The way he kills Anakin is he kills any of the existing love he may have had for Padme or any of the existing integrity he felt about being a Jedi Knight, all of the goodness, even his pod racing skills probably were completely eliminated. Well, I shouldn't say that because Darth Vader was still a damn good pilot.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, you're right. In the Marvel comics, they do sort of address this because one of Padme's handmaidens becomes an ally of Vader in the post-Empire era. And at first she's looking to assassinate him.
Sabe.
But then but then he influences her to join his cause. He's conflicted in the era between Empire and Jedi. He's definitely conflicted. And he seeks allies to help him with his goal of overthrowing the Empire. So, and that's a goal that he reveals to Luke on Cloud City. The Emperor knows you're powerful. He's foreseen that you can kill him. Things like that. That's join me, and together we'll destroy the Emperor and rule the Empire. They rule the galaxy as father and son. Once that opportunity slipped through his fingers, then in that year between Empire and Jedi, he's reinforcing his efforts to defeat Palpatine eventually.
All right. Well, aren't you glad you left that voicemail? I saw the guy. He had like 4 different attempts at this, and I thought the 4th attempt was the best. Here's the thing with our voicemails, gang. 3 minutes is the cutoff.
It's 2. I thought it was 2 minutes.
2
if
for
it's 3
us.
minutes.
2 is for us.
Our cutoff is 2.
Yeah.
The mechanics of the voicemail is 3 minutes. Our mechanics are 2 minutes. So,
so try to keep it
remember that.
under 2. That would be great.
I have good news for you, my lord.
That's good news. Come closer, I have good news.
Yeah, good news. Good news. We got the Skeleton Crew trailer, and we knew this was probably coming when we got the People exclusive photos that we broke down last week. But now we got the official trailer. It was premiered at D23 during the Lucasfilm panel. And this was released to everybody. This wasn't something that they blacked out. They did release this to everybody. And I think we should get to it, break it down, talk about it, what we got here.
Let's jump into this trailer and maybe hit pause along the way so we can discuss what we're seeing.
All right.
But this is a very fun trailer. Just my first blush impression. I thought it captured a certain vibe.
Oh.
If they're going for like the Goonies or Stranger Things or
Amblin.
even E.T.,
Right.
That sort of
Explorers,
80s kid film vibe.
Monster Squad, all those great 80s coming-of-age films, Stand By Me, things like that. All right, here we go.
Stand By Me, which is probably my favorite of all of them.
Oh,
I thought that was the best made film. Yeah.
Here we go.
kid
That
in
little
bed.
girl in bed, yeah.
Very normal looking bed, very normal looking bedroom. That's the first thing that strikes me about this trailer is how real world everything seems.
Very much so.
I mean, like earthbound real world.
Yeah.
Kids
and we
in
got some
bed.
toys. Or is it, what is this? Oh, she's got little ships that are hanging from her ceiling, almost like a kid's, what do you call that?
With the fishing line, you hang the models you built up over your bed on the ceiling. Looks like those could be some pod racers.
Oh, I was thinking of a mobile. She's a little old for a mobile. But yeah,
yeah,
these
a
are
little
models,
bit, yeah. But she's just looking at that. You can tell she's dreaming of some adventure or whatnot.
Music is very dreamy, too. Oh, look at this, a school bus.
I mean, how
school bus.
earthbound can you get? Those are earthbound trees, those earthbound street. The bus itself looks like public transportation we would normally see, even down to the color of the seats themselves.
Dude, if I didn't know better, I would think that this was like kids from our own galaxy traveling to the galaxy far, far away. It's so real world. I mean, this is what, Santa Monica? Where did they film this?
It looks like It looks like Southern California, and kids in a school bus with a hammerhead driving them to school. I mean, if you look in the background, you see like fire hydrants and mailboxes and telephone lines on poles. Well, maybe not that much.
Look at this. Look at this. Look at this highway or this road. These are paved roads with medians and grass.
Yeah, definitely Southern California vibes. The suburbs is what I'm feeling here. Very suburbs.
Now the classroom. This looks Star Warsy to me.
Well, it's epic in scale. It's a giant hall with 100, maybe more students sitting in desks. A lot of open space.
Now, Jim, remember we did see a classroom in season 2 of The Mandalorian.
Yes,
when Grogu was on Greece planet there, where he was magistrate. And
but that was like a little schoolhouse compared to this
schoolhouse,
giant
exactly.
auditorium.
That was like Little House on the Prairie stuff. This is it's much more.
You get more Andor vibes from this vision.
That's right.
Set the course of your entire.
That was me, by the way, just sleeping, head down.
She's in the classroom. Yeah, she's got that head on the desk. I used to do that too.
Set the course of your entire future.
Oh, here's the teacher. Okay, now this is looking a little Star Warsy here. A lot of beige. Star Wars loves its beige.
It's a much smaller classroom, though.
Different classroom. You're right.
It looks like a Yoda kid sitting in front there.
Does
we're only seeing the back of the kid's head, but it looks. Oh, there's antenna
stalks
ruling out Yoda. But and then a droid that I've never seen before, but looks so familiar. I can't quite place this particular droid. But again, it's that Star Wars established aesthetic.
For sure.
And for droids, it's almost like looking at a small probot head on the body of a very humanoid kind of droid. But I don't think we've ever seen anything like this before.
No, not in this configuration.
So familiar.
It's a mashup. It looks to me like a bit of a mashup.
Much smaller classroom than that giant auditorium hall that we were in the first shot. But still definitely a classroom of some sort. Mm-hmm. And I see this is one of the protagonists of the show whose name I don't know.
Yeah, I've not committed those to memory yet. So we'll just know that this is one of them.
Someone's name like KB. That's not KB. One is named Neil. That was not Neil. Mm-hmm. It's the other one.
The other one.
From the creators of John Watts and Christopher Ford, the people who brought us the latest Spider-Man trilogy.
This is combining some aesthetics. This is not totally real world. I buy this as being a Star Wars planet. We see like a canal. So there's some water on this planet and some apartments. I think we're looking at middle to upper middle class residents of inhabitants of the Star Wars universe here.
Yeah,
now
we're finally going to the
bikes in
suburbs
action.
of Star Wars.
The Star
and
Wars
again,
suburbs,
and again, it still gives me Andor vibes. Just how real world, how real earthly these locations look, yet with Star Wars aesthetic being presented throughout. The trees in this area is so much like walking out my front door. That it's surprising. And in this shot you're putting up here where we have the train, obvious public transportation, kids on rudimentary speeders that we talked about last week that look kind of like Schwinn bikes from the 70s and 80s almost. And they're racing to get to school, I assume, in Star Wars Santa Monica.
All right, and we got
Like what?
Oh, and here's our little guy,
Max Rebo type.
Max Rebo type. Yeah.
Neil.
He's an Ortolan. Yeah, this is Neil,
Yes.
right? He's an Ortolan.
Yes, and same as Max Rebo.
Right, and this he's just got marketing written all over him. Everybody that I have talked to about this trailer, even someone I didn't even realize was a Star Wars fan, approached me in the day job and said, "Oh, move over, Baby Yoda, whatever this is." Yeah,
Neil.
That's what he
Neil
said.
is going to be the new Baby Yoda.
Hey, he is
That's
cute.
Very interesting.
He's cute.
What if
Producers Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni. Now, what roles they actually have? Filoni would have ultimate editorial control in terms of story at this point.
Well, I mean, you assume, when you say things like Dave has ultimate editorial control, yes, he sits in the executive suite at Lucasfilm. But when you're working with creatives like a John Watts and a Christopher Ford, guys who have proven track records, it's like, how heavy-handed is Dave Filoni going to be exerting his executive power?
Well, he has the
on
power.
show?
Is he going to use the power? That's the question.
Right. So I think a lot of people, because I've seen a lot of people saying this about The Acolyte. How did Dave Filoni greenlight this thing?
Well,
number one, I think The Acolyte was already greenlit long before Dave moved into the executive level at Lucasfilm.
For sure.
And number two, why didn't he stop it? You guys, there's so many politics at play in Hollywood productions.
And money.
It's not
what he's going to say?
And money.
Now I'm in charge. We're gonna just shelve this thing.
It doesn't work that way. It does not work that way in the creative process or in the showbiz process. Once you hire creatives to work on your brand, those creatives expect a certain amount of autonomy. And when the studio starts interfering, that's when a lot of great movies get screwed. Big time. George Lucas himself had a whole career before Star Wars where the studios were interfering with his creative vision left and right, thus motivating George to become totally independent and bankroll all of his own films. Francis Ford Coppola is another example. So when you say you want Dave Filoni just to march into these productions and start laying down the law and putting up stop signs left and right, that can create a really horrible production at the end of the day. It's a too many cooks in the kitchen situation, right or wrong. It's too many cooks in the kitchen and it's interference with the creative process. Well, and a lot of these guys have earned their stripes long before they started working on Star Wars stuff. And I'm talking about John Watts and Christopher Ford specifically.
Yeah.
Where,
But I mean,
if they came on board and there was that kind of studio interference, they would quit.
Yeah, but I think that you're right when you say that this has everything to do with the timing. These things were long in production, long filmed before Dave Filoni got to the position formally that he's in. That was only a year ago.
Right.
So we may see more of the Filoni influence with future projects, but I
hope so. I hope so. Where he's working in lockstep with the creatives from day one. He's not coming in at the 11th hour saying, no, change this, change that, change this.
Right.
That's where studio interference goes crazy. In this particular case, though, with Skeleton Crew, Favreau and Filoni were attached to this production as producers from the get-go. So regardless of Dave Filoni promotions within the executive branch of Lucasfilm, he was already on board with
this.
This
is technically in the Mando-verse. This takes place in the same time frame as the Mandalorian series, Ahsoka, all those. So I think that's why you got these two guys involved. All righty. Now, whoa, boy.
This is the suburbs, man.
Yeah.
I'm surprised a kid isn't riding down the street on a bicycle throwing newspapers on the lawn. You know, this is so quintessential American
and a
suburb
dog. There's
life.
a dog and an Ithorian in the same shot. Have we ever seen a dog in Star Wars? Well, I guess there were sort of those dog-like creatures in Ahsoka, and we've seen wolves in the sequel trilogy, so I guess. But a domesticated dog isn't something I recall ever seeing.
Carrie Fisher's dog Gary did appear in the casino in The Last Jedi.
God.
But I don't think he was playing a dog. I mean, Gary's an actor. So if you're going to put him on screen, he's not going to play a dog. That's too easy for him. But you're right, Jason. This is a hammerhead on a suburban sidewalk walking his dog. And as a dog lover, I will not stick my nose up and be snobby about dogs in Star Wars. I think there should be actually more dogs in Star Wars. You know? I mean, you could have had a dog on the Millennium Falcon, but you had Chewbacca, which is like the ultimate Star Wars dog.
Right. Yeah, right. And you might argue that some of the shows themselves have been dogs. So
you might argue that, Jason. Yes, you might argue that. But
look at these
dogs
trees.
have always existed in Star Wars as far as canon goes because Luke mentions having a dog when he grew up in the novelization. He references his dog.
Dogs and ducks,
so
both talked about in Star Wars. The original
dog
novel.
should be inside. I mean, dogs are a gift of the Force in the real world. Dogs make life better. So if dogs make life better,
I agree with
they'll
that.
definitely make Star Wars better too. More dogs in Star Wars.
Right.
A real.
Oh, look at this. They're playing video games on the iPad. See, screen time is a big deal even in the galaxy far, far away. And notice that they're a Jedi character in that game.
It looks like in the game. Is it a game or is it like a TV show or a movie or something? It looks like
I think it's a game. This looks like
so you're a Jedi with a green saber taking on what looks to be if a Rancor and a frog made love. That's what you would get.
It's a Francor.
It looks kind of like a Rancor. The first time I saw this this trailer, I didn't catch this. This is the first time I'm really taking a look at this. And it's a really interesting image.
And the graphics aren't great on this. I mean, everything's outlined. I mean, what is this? Is this like 16-bit?
16-bit for holograms. That's
okay.
16-bit. It's holograms are naturally advanced sort of technology, but they even have a 16-bit version of holograms.
I found something.
So the setup with a lot of this dialogue that you're not hearing is they're yearning for adventure. They're pining to have something that takes them out of their sort of mundane lives. So they're clearly a group of friends, very much in the tradition of the Goonies or Stand By Me, and I get the sense that they're always sort of up to something. You know, some hijinks there in the neighborhood. Always investigating, always thinking that they're on to something. But then, obviously, this takes them to a place where they actually do. And speaking of Goonies, I think this female character, she's the one that we see a lot of times with the visor. I think she's sort of like Data, the Ki Hu Kwan character. She's kind of got the gadgets.
I get it,
You know, that's what I'm picturing.
She's she's like the scientist of the bunch.
Right.
And I think this is KB, the character KB. And you see she's in what appears to be a garage or a storage locker. And she has a workbench and this lamp that looks like it was bought at Walmart yesterday. I mean, it's so un-Star Wars-y looking. But here's
Pixar's mascot right there. It's the, it goes boingy, boingy, boingy when there's the beginning of a Pixar movie.
Right, the original Pixar animation, right.
Yeah.
Very similar to that. Maybe it's a call out to that. I don't know. But it looks so earthbound. And we're seeing a lot of very naturally earthbound imagery here. We've been talking about it, the bus, the suburbs, walking a dog on the sidewalk, all that stuff. And I think that's being done for a reason. I think it's being done for a reason. I think it's trying to make us absorb the familiarity of the kid's situation at the beginning of the story before we get launched into hyperspace and go to some really crazy far out there locations. It's trying to put the audience in a place where, as if you're almost going on this trek with these children, because eventually they will get launched into hyperspace and presented a sort of lost in space scenario.
Great point, because if you're going to create a distinction between where they end up, which has got to look wild, like you say, threatening, then they can't actually start out in the Mos Eisley Cantina.
Exactly.
What's the difference between the Cantina and Jabba's Palace? It's always Star Wars is very far out. So, yeah, it does have to be very relatable, safe.
At the beginning.
At the beginning.
Present us with a lot of familiar imagery, things we're used to, we're accustomed to. So when it makes their trek out to the far reaches of the galaxy, they're going to these fantastical places that are so vastly different from anything we're used to. It almost helps us go on that journey with the kids, the protagonists in this show.
Yeah.
That's just my speculation watching this stuff out in the open for the first time. And so hopefully they're doing that with the show. Hopefully these are things that were talked about in production meetings for Skeleton Crew as they were breaking the story. Yeah. Let's put them in a familiar environment. Not familiar to Star Wars fans, but familiar to regular people on planet Earth in the year 2024. So everyone can instantly bond and relate with the characters. So when they get sucked off into the universe, we get sucked out into the universe with them. It matters.
Yeah. Right. I am struggling a little bit with how earthbound everything is, but let's keep going here.
Out into the woods they go.
With their bikes.
You know that's my favorite environment to have Star Wars adventures, in the woods. Oh, well, I mean, that's fanfic level environment. The Acolyte went to the woods 3 times. And it doesn't present. Me and my son Michael were having discussions about the Acolyte saber duels and how we both agree, yes, they're the best saber duels we've seen in the Disney era of Star Wars. But he went on to say they could be the best saber duels of all time. And I stopped him short. And I said, no, because the environments are lame. It's a forest. It's where they shoot fanfic saber duels.
Right.
Look online. Go to YouTube. Look at the saber duels. For years, they've been shooting saber duels, master replica sabers out in the forest preserve somewhere. And Star Wars is better than that when it comes to environments. So you might love the brutality and the choreography of the saber duels in the Acolyte, but where it fails is the environment. They're not in the hangar on Theed or the generator complex on Theed or the exploding volcanoes of Mustafar or Cloud City.
Right.
In the carbon freezing chamber.
That has a lot to do with it.
It's just it's in the woods. That's pedestrian and lame and weak. And you're going to tell me you had $180 million budget and you can't have saber duels or action anywhere outside of the woods? Come on.
Yeah. Not as bad as the rock quarry that we got in Kenobi. That's probably the worst setting ever.
That's the worst. Yeah, that's worse than a forest.
Yeah.
I'll take a forest over that quarry any day of the week. I'm literally 3 minutes away from driving. I could drive my car and visit the Kenobi shooting site where that saber duel happened. I could just pull my car right up in there. Yeah, it has to be better. It has to be bigger. It has to be epic. It has to be creative.
Yeah.
And that's where the environments of the Acolyte fail me, is there's no creativity in the environments. And this is something I fear Lucasfilm is losing grasp of. And they better look back at some of the George Lucas productions to understand that the environment is as much a character as the people dueling the sabers.
And the environments were extreme. Okay, I want to make a sand planet. Guess what? The entire planet is sand. Oh, I want to make a snow planet. The whole planet, one big glacier. Do I need to go on? The water planet, Camino. The whole thing is water. Like these extreme environments, not these kind of lukewarm milquetoast. Yeah. All right. So here they are. It looks like they're in a cave somewhere, and they find I believe this is when they come upon the ship. Yeah, here we go. So the hold opened. They've got the flashlights, which
this really
how inevitable is it, Jim, that we're going to get them horsing around with flashlights pretending they're lightsabers? Is that going to happen?
Well, I mean, that's what we did as kids in the 70s and 80s when this Amblin era was happening. So, you're probably – they're playing video games with characters using lightsabers.
Right.
So, yeah, I'll buy you a pizza if that happens. I'll have a pizza sent to your house.
All right, now that big fall here, that was like, right out of Goonies when they fall and they find One-Eyed Willie's pirate ship, that type of thing. It looks like a slide here, so they're sliding down, and now we see some explosions. And here's the droid. Speaking of One-Eyed Willie, this character is very much. I think inspired by that. This is the SM-33 character that's voiced by Nick Frost, I believe.
This is a skeleton.
Oh, wait a minute. Is that a skeleton?
The droid does have like skeletal features, but I think this is a legitimate dead dude.
Right. This is a dead humanoid or something. Yeah. Okay, I'll save my comments for when we actually see the droid. But yeah, I was confusing the two. Well, I was thinking One-Eyed Willie skeleton, and this is a skeleton, legit skeleton. So there's the droid. I think right.
The droid sort of resembles like an ancient version of.
There we go.
K2 from Andor to me.
Yeah,
it
even
just
has
looks
one
like an
eye,
ancient,
like a pirate.
He has one eye, and the
other eye doesn't light up.
It looks like a C-3PO eye.
Yeah.
But the droid itself gives me more K2 vibes, and also a little bit of the Jedi droid from Ahsoka. Kind of, because that droid is supposed to be ancient too.
Right, yeah. Yeah. I think later we'll see. Oh, wait, but I think this is this droid has a peg leg, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, so it's like.
It's literally
that's
a pirate
interesting.
droid.
If the droid has a peg leg, and we know pirates play a role in this show, then this could be a pirate droid.
Right. There they go. They're launching into hyperspace accidentally, or they activate something inadvertently, and there they go. So that's
how they get lost.
Now we're lost in space. And then we see them on looks like a snow planet here, or at least there's snow on the ground.
I'm getting some real cinematic vibes from this. I mean, it feels bigger than a TV show. It feels bigger than the vibe that they could establish on The Acolyte. This feels very much like a major motion picture. Judging from these images, judging from the lighting and the cinematography. It just gives me those vibes. And yes, this show was shot in the volume. And I know there's some people poo-pooing that technology now, but I'll take the volume over practical sets of Acolyte any day.
You know, unless they're going to give us Andor quality location shooting, yes, I'm with you, because what did we get from the volume? It gave us the Mandalorian. I mean, let's start there. The most successful streaming endeavor. And like you're saying, you know, we look at the environments in Kenobi. I would say the environments in Book of Boba Fett were better than anything we saw, I think, in Kenobi. At least we were back in Jabba's palace.
Sometimes. Kenobi and Book of Boba Fett, that's where I think a lot of the criticism of the volume started to really begin to emerge.
Did they do Kenobi in the volume?
Yes.
Was
yes,
it?
They did. Mm-hmm.
So that rock quarry, somebody had to program that thing and like create that?
Yeah, I don't get that either. Or maybe that was shot on location.
That might have been,
I mean, if they're using the volume, that doesn't mean they exclusively use the volume for these productions.
Sure,
they do take things out
to
shoot locations. They'll set up a green screen out in an empty lot or something. There are things that do happen beyond the volume.
Right.
But
you're right. There was a lot of criticism, like, "Oh, we want to go back to the days of practical and on location and all that." And that's great when it's done well, but I think the volume is just as capable.
Well, you have to have the right people, not only directing, producing, and writing, but you have to have the right people running the cameras and setting up the lights, and all of that becomes so important to establishing realism in a shot. And sometimes it's beyond, the budget or the tools, the technology. It's the people running this stuff. You need to have the best people working this stuff. Otherwise, it looks like an episode of Battlestar Galactica circa 1978. Which wasn't bad for 1978.
Oh, hey, look at this. Here's the latest from Hasbro. From the studio that brought you Lola. From the studio that brought you Pip. Now we've got a little bird like it. This is pretty cute. What is this little thing? Oh, you know what? I bet it's like a gremlin. I think this is a Gremlins reference. Don't pour water on this thing. Don't feed it after midnight.
Does it make the little cute sounds too?
I was hearing a little cute sound. Let's listen to this. Oh, it was a little trill. Oh, Jawas. Wait a minute. It's going too fast now.
Well, before we get away from that little cute creature, that little cute red fuzzy creature, something that a lot of people have noticed is that this is a little creature that's been plucked from Disney's Captain EO film that used to be screened at Epcot. Produced by George Lucas, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Michael Jackson.
Right.
This little character is known as the Captain EO Fuzzball. And
laugh it up.
He's brought
Fuzzball.
He's brought back to life as an element to be used in Skeleton Crew.
This is like maybe a little Easter egg. Maybe it's not a major plot moment or character or something.
Yeah, right. I just think it's just a little Easter egg nod.
Yeah.
But here's the Fuzzball reappearing.
Wait a minute.
Almost 40 years after Captain EO made its debut.
Does this mean that Captain EO takes place in the same universe as Star Wars?
Well, with the George Lucasfilm inclusion and creation, I mean, the line's a little thin.
Because now we've got
enough.
I mean, he gave us E.T. in The Phantom Menace. The E.T.
And that didn't even come from a George Lucas production.
Right.
It came from Spielberg. So, I mean, the door, I think, is open for collaborations between the Star Wars universe and the Captain EO universe. And here we're seeing it right in our face. Kind of crazy, but fun.
Oh, some Jawas. And note the yellow eyes. So they are not off-world Jawas. These Jawas are on-world.
So are we on Tatooine at this point? I mean, when they say they're off-world, what world are we talking about? I assumed we were talking Tatooine.
Me too.
So I don't know.
What are the physics and the biology behind the off-world Jawas?
The container there is a big jar. It sort of looks like Jabba's hookah to me, kind of, or that fishbowl where he kept his frogs for snacking.
Yeah,
it looks like it's filled with some wine. In this shot from Skeleton Crew, but it has a similar, to me, a similar feel to the Jabba hookah. So where are these guys? It's nighttime, or at least dark out wherever they are, so we don't know anything about the environment in which they're in or what planet they're on, but yellow eyes to me indicate that we're on Tatooine.
'Tis dangerous.
Oh, look at this guy. He looks pretty interesting. Look at him.
Ooh, he might be a pirate of some sort.
Yeah, he looks like something out of the Droids cartoon or the Ewoks cartoon. I'm not saying he is. I'm just saying, yeah. So he's green. He's looks like he's diminutive, so short. He's got what's going on with that mouth of his?
I think that's his chin. I think he's got like a warty chin.
He's got a warty, toothy chin. Yeah. Well, he is.
That's
ugly.
a double chin too, if I've ever seen one.
Human hands, like big hands, and wearing some sort of, I don't know what this is. He's got like this looks almost like a mechanical something around his waist. This is pretty
Weird
far
alien.
out. This is not your typical Rick Baker, or no, excuse me, Neil Scanlon sequel era alien here. This looks. This looks.
Does he have hair? It looks like he's got normal hands, like 5 fingers and a
right. He's got normal humanoid
hands.
hands. Is this Warwick Davis in this costume? I'm getting a Warwick vibe. This looks like a Warwick Davis type character here.
Maybe it's Warwick.
Let's listen to if we can hear the sound.
'Tis dangerous out there in space.
'Tis dangerous out there in space. I don't know if it's that character that's talking. Oh, he's got a knife. I didn't realize that.
He does have a blade.
Threatening some sort of blade, yeah.
Dangerous out there in space.
Oh, now wait a minute. Is this like a mechanic? Is this an owl? What is going on here? And is it mechanical? I don't know what.
Yeah, there's some wild imagery in this trailer, and I'm having a hard time putting my finger on any of it. It almost looked like that little owl character was attached to a similar crane, like Palpatine was attached to in The Rise of Skywalker.
Oh my God!
It almost looks like that.
This
maybe it's just a chair he sits in that moves around or something. But an owl, definitely an owl alien,
an owlian.
I have to say, I like the creativity in some of these images we're seeing regarding the aliens of Skeleton Crew.
Yeah,
and that's why I think the kids are going to be encountering a lot of characters like this, and they're not going to know they don't know what to think of this kind of stuff that they're being thrust into from. The suburbia of Star Wars,
right,
into this crazy stuff that, I mean, it's like kind of like Labyrinth type.
Yes, it does have. Well, again, aliens. From that era, that would make sense. That would fit in.
Trust no one.
Oh, there's the droid we were talking about, the one-eyed Willy droid.
Yes, he's the droid
voiced by Nick Frost.
Ancient droid, I believe. Ancient droid.
We'll hear him talk here.
Trust no one.
Trust no one. Oh, look at that.
Little X-Files.
Deveronian? No, it's not Deveronian.
No.
This is a werewolf
is
droid.
Deveronian is the devil type character that we see in the cantina. This is the Wolfman. This is the Wolfman. Lax Sivrak was the cantina Wolfman back in the day. George Lucas was never happy with his presence in the cantina because it was essentially an off-the-shelf Wolfman mask that Rick Baker had in his studio. And George was never just happy with that off-the-shelf look. So he replaced the Wolfman a couple of times in the special edition releases. But now Wolfman's back, and he's got blasters blazing.
But no nards. This is
Nards.
That's a Monster Squad reference. Wolfman's got nards?
Oh, I don't. That one went right over my head, pal.
Wolfman's got nards. You know, this is a space werewolf. This is the Shiv. I better not say this wrong. Shistavanen.
That's right. That's who he is.
Yep.
Shistavian, I thought.
Shistavian?
Shistavian,
yeah. Shih Tzu. All right. So here but he's cool. He's got double blasters. I love that.
It's a good look.
Yeah, that's Star Warsy right there. That is Star Warsy, big time.
Yeah,
love it.
Alien emerging from the shadows with blasters blazing.
It's so helpful when they use one of these iconic Star Wars aliens. Like if you're going to populate the Star Wars universe, I'm not saying you can't ever go outside of the box and bring in new ones, but they're so stingy with the classic aliens in the newer stuff. Give us a Rodian. That stuff was all over the animated, Clone Wars. It was all established aliens, and some of them we got a little bored of. We're like, okay, give us something new. But in the live action stuff, it's pretty much the opposite. So anyway, this Space Wolfman is definitely a welcome character. Little port opening here. Seeing our heroes. Monster of the Week. Here we go. We love our Star Wars monsters. Look at this thing. This looks like it's right out of Mandalorian. Here's some sort of crab creature. I think this is actually a battle maybe between two different creatures that we're seeing. I don't know. It's hard to tell. But it definitely looks crabby.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll be getting our healthy share of creatures and beasts in this show, which I think is essential to Star Wars. Mm-hmm. You don't want it to be creature of the week sort of thing. Like I think the Bad Batch season 3 ran into that redundancy a little bit, but every once in a while these kids should come across some monster creature that they've never seen before that scares the pants off of them and presents a real challenge to our protagonists in this show. Various shots of the kids sitting on the starship. This kid's, that's Wix, I believe, sitting in the gun turret of, I assume, the ship they find on their planet that launches them into this adventure.
He kind of looks like Anakin when Anakin gets launched out into space accidentally at first, and then he like, okay, now I know what I'm doing. He gets oriented.
Let's spin. Let's try spinning. That's a good trick.
That's a good trick.
But I believe the premise of the show is the kids are out exploring. We get treated to their typical suburban lifestyle at the beginning, and we learn that they're all kind of bored and they're seeking adventure. They go out exploring in the woods. They find a starship. They poke around in it with their flashlights, and then they find the droid. They activate the droid, the Nick Frost droid. And when they do so, somehow that makes the ship active and pushes it out into hyperspace to destinations unknown. And nobody on board the ship is capable of punching in the coordinates into the Navicomputer to get them back home. So that establishes the basis, the foundation for all of their adventures. They're lost in space, Stranger Things kids in space on an adventure.
All right, now here's the big money shot here at the end where we see this key being levitated off of the key ring. They're in some sort of...
kids are in jail.
Yeah, they're in kid jail.
They're in kid jail. This reminds me of a couple things. There was a Brady Bunch episode where the Bradys were visiting the Grand Canyon, and they decided to stop off one night in this abandoned ghost town somewhere in the Wild West. And there's a prospector there who believes the Brady clan is after his gold. So
Old prospector.
They go exploring, and it was played by Jim Backus from the Gilligan's Island.
Mr. Howell.
Thurston Howell. Yeah. And so he traps the Brady Bunch in this old jail cell and then steals their station wagon to go file his claim of gold. So Mike and the kids have to throw their shoes at the key that's hanging up on the wall, and then they take their socks and they tie the socks all together to make a rope, and then they attach that to Carol Brady's purse. And so they throw the purse out and it lands on the keys, and then they drag the purse, which then drags the keys to the jail cell, and they're actually able to escape. Also, the ride Pirates of the Caribbean at Disneyland features a bunch of pirates in a jail cell, and a dog is sitting there with the key ring in its mouth. And the pirates are all trying to whistle to the dog and entice the dog to come closer to the bars so they can grab the key out of the dog's mouth. So those are the two vibes I get.
Well, we don't need
don't
need a rope of dirty socks, and we don't need a dog, because we got a Force sensitive right here in the character of Jude Law, and his name, boy, I can never remember. This is going to be a tough one for me.
Nod.
Let's just call him Nod, because it's
Jod.
No, Jod. Jod Na.
Wait, Jod.
Jod.
Yeah, Jod.
Jod Na Nawood.
Jod Na Nawood.
Jod Na
Jod Na
Nawood.
Nawood. This stuff will be just rolling off our tongues in December. But for now,
Yes,
it's
it
like
will.
Nod, Jod, Zod, Jod.
So he's revealed, because the kid asks, I think, what does he say? You're a Jedi?
What are you, some kind of Jedi?
You're a Jedi.
Pulls the hood down in a
I
very
hope he's
Jedi
a real
move.
Jedi and not a fake Jedi like that. What was the character in Kenobi? He drove me crazy. Where he was that fake Jedi. Remember that? That guy that's in every movie and every TV show. Now I can't remember his name, but wait 5 minutes, you'll see him on a TV show or a movie. Just flip the channels.
Scam artist. Oh, he's all over the place.
Yeah, he's everywhere.
Yeah, that scam artist.
Yeah.
I kind of dig that, though. I like the idea of
the fake Jedi?
in that dark time, the early parts of the dark times when people still are aware of who the Jedi were and everything, and then this guy's rolling in, scamming people, making them believe he's a Jedi. I like that, actually. I like that. Now, with Jude Law, though, he pulls down the hood in the classic Jedi move. But nobody in the history of Star Wars ever did the hood pull down and reveal as great as Mark Hamill did at the end of The Force Awakens. That's was
the best ever.
One of the greatest moments. And it just, there was no dialogue. There was no anything.
No.
We were all just left there to fill in the blanks until Ryan Johnson came to town.
Oh, he filled
Lifted
in the blanks
his leg on the Star Wars legacy, beat away.
Well,
But,
at D23,
that was
they
a great
had
moment.
they had a number of the characters, the costumes, the masks, all of that on display. We get a better shot of the space werewolf, which is so cool. We also get a reuse, which is nice.
It's, just last week I was saying, bring back the reuse to Star Wars.
Where's
And-
reuse, he's asking.
And there we go. We get a Gran. The Grans are back in town.
Yeah.
Don't you mess around.
And here's
So-
this is the pirate. I can't think of his name. Vane? Vane, yeah.
Yeah, Vane, like weather vane.
Yeah, Vane, or I'm so vain. This guy. So, and this is a very common species that we see associated with the pirates in the Filoni-verse, the Mando-verse.
He's a Barada? Or
I
a
don't think he's
Niktu?
Niktu. I think he's a Niktu.
A Niktu? A Niktu.
Yeah.
That's what he is. Niktu.
And this is all, by the way, it looks like on the sort of on a staged version of the Onyx Cinder. That's the name of the ship, by the way, that the kids are on. The Onyx Cinder. And then there's the pirate droid, One-Eyed Willie.
That's the droid. Yeah, the droid the kids activate, which initiate this entire adventure. It was really cool that Lucasfilm had this pavilion area at D23 where they had this little display, and it's a great display. And
now check this out, Jim. Look, gold. So I think there's going to be the treasure. That's right. Yeah. So his booty. He's got his boot on the booty. So
that's right.
Pirate's life for me. So yeah, gold is going to be, or whatever the Star Wars equivalent of gold is. I hope they don't call it gold.
They'll come up with some Star Wars.
I mean, he did say ARG.
I mean, what have we heard about money? Like, things of valuable minerals in Star Wars.
Well, Beskar.
What do we know? What's
Beskar.
That?
Beskar is one.
Beskar. I guess coaxium might be, but I mean that's not used as a currency of any type. I don't think Beskar is necessarily used as a currency, but it's hard to tell because they have them with those bars and they're stamped with the imperial.
They're stamped with
cog
the
on them.
right. So that would be kind of like bars of gold,
yeah,
or silver or something like that.
Something. You got the calamari flan, which is like it's kind of like if a gummy bear was money. And credits, of course, credits always get thrown around in service. Republic credits.
But by the way, they're never of any value in any galaxy that or any era that we're thrust in. Never any Republic credits. You're gonna have to do better.
It's like
than that.
trying to get a Coke out of the machine with video game tokens. It ain't gonna happen.
Sounds like the American dollar these days. I need something more real. You have a Bitcoin? All right.
What do you got? Don't talk to me about inflation.
Okay. So Favreau, Filoni were also featured at the event. They were able to get up and talk about the Mandalorian and Grogu film. Yeah. And they were also doing the press pool. And I think we got a quote here. Is this from this is Jon Favreau talking about?
Yeah, this is Jon talking basically about why is this a good time to take advantage of the Mandalorian brand and move him to the big screen? And Jon talks about the opportunity that provides.
To have worked with these characters and also the people behind the scenes as well, and to come back together and to have the scale and scope of the big screen to tell the story with characters that people already know in a brand new adventure that can, part of what we're setting out to do is to have something that rewards people who've been with the show since the beginning, been with Star Wars since the beginning. But also, since we're on the big screen, it's an opportunity to reach out with a new adventure to a whole new audience of. And certainly with Grogu, all the kids know who that is, and this is an opportunity to bring them into the theater and show them who this character is and what he's about.
I love that. I love everything that he says there. It makes total sense. We've talked about it, Jim. I know you've talked about it since maybe after the first season of Mandalorian. You're like, this is the future of Star Wars on the big screen. Let's just do it. And it makes all the sense in the world. And hopefully what I hope that this movie represents is a big palate cleanser. I hope and a big message to Lucasfilm that these two, Filoni and Favreau, for the most part, they know what they're doing. Just give them the keys to the castle. You don't need all these splinter, oddball shows with different agendas or different eras and all of that. Let's just tell a cohesive story. You can evolve that, and you can have different stories supported through a Disney Plus series and into the theaters. But I think you really got to do it with strategy and purpose instead of this scattershot way they've been doing. Let's do a kid show. Let's do this type of show. Let's do that type of show. A friend of mine, he texted me and he goes, it's neat to see a Star Wars show inspired by Stand By Me and the Goonies. And I said, you know what? At this point, I'll take a Star Wars show that's inspired by Star Wars.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
so I hope Mando and Grogu do that.
Would you talk about the melting pot that George Lucas incorporated, where he took all of these vast influences like Westerns, samurai films, the stuff from pulp novels,
right, serials and all that.
Yeah, and then his way of deciphering it all by using the blueprint laid out by Joseph Campbell was just perfection in the way that he established the foundation for Star Wars. But I feel like creatives nowadays, they misinterpret what George was doing. They think, well, George he based this on the Western. He based this on, drag racing. He based this, there's a different approaches you can go to. Yeah, but George, like I said, put it all into a melting pot.
That's right.
And mixed it and made sure that it was ready to serve as Star Wars. That was his finished meal. And all of these other pieces are just ingredients.
That's right.
But they're not. But the ingredients themselves, I don't think, should ever be the main course.
Absolutely.
They should be. Yeah, they should be part of the stew. And and George has already built that foundation. It's already established. So to keep going back and trying different spins or trying to use outside sources beyond what George Lucas even considered to create Star Wars, I think you're on a fool's errand and you're not understanding all the legwork that's already been done by George Lucas.
Right, and I think that's really one of the areas where Leslie Headland went way wrong, was every episode, every plot twist, every idea seemed to be inspired by something else.
Other than Star Wars.
Other than Star Wars, right.
I mean, everything she put up on the screen was derivative of something else. And that's not what George was doing when he was throwing all those elements into the mixing pot. He was taking the best of the things that he understood and making it into something new.
Right.
As opposed to just taking stuff that already exists and putting a Star Wars skin on it.
Yeah.
And that's what's been going on a little bit with Star Wars and the creatives that have been working on it.
Yeah, for sure. But I tell you what, I'm going to go on the ride as we do here at Rebel Force Radio. Strap in, get on the coaster, take it for a ride. The Ride of Skeleton Crew will be here each and every week, breaking down every episode. It's going to be something. It's going to be a hoot. And I'm open-minded. I think I love the things that have inspired this show, and I also love Star Wars. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. The proof's in the pudding. But we've got some Jedi. We've got some classic Star Wars aliens. And we have Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni standing by as executive producers. And the creative team on this series, Christopher Ford and John Watts, they've got some pedigree. This is no Leslie Headland here working on this show, I don't think.
There's what did Harrison Ford say? It's not about the years, it's about the mileage. I mean, you kind of want that from your guys who are working on Star Wars, and Ford and Watts have mileage, and they've proven that with the Spider-Man stuff. So, I mean, that's a big tent pole property.
It's almost like it's a thing within a thing. I mean, you've got, yes, of course, this version of Spider-Man is in the Avengers and all of that, but those movies kind of stand on their own in a way that I don't think has been seen since the very earliest days of the Marvel Universe, like with the original Iron Man films and things like that. So they've definitely stumbled onto something. I shouldn't say stumbled on. They've definitely found something, a great formula. And I think they're very talented at what they do. So let's see what they can bring to Star Wars.
Your source for the Force.
All right, without further ado, let's head off in the cantina and let's talk to the Tenutos about their new book, The Star Wars Radio Dramas, Brian Daley and the Serialization That Saved NPR.
Yes.
Star Wars Cantina.
Where are you going, Master? For a drink.
Sorry about the mess. You will never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. We must be cautious.
Maria and John, thanks so much. Welcome back to Rebel Force Radio in the Cantina. It's finally here. The Star Wars Radio Dramas book. It's finally here. We had you on some time ago as you were working on it, but now it's available for everyone to read for themselves and bone up on this really incredible moment in time for Star Wars. I've talked to so many people over the years that have discovered this thing at different points in their fandom. And they all say the same thing, which was, wow, it made me look at the movies in a totally different way. All the extra dialogue, it's so incredible. Is that why you think this thing endures despite the Star Wars history being such a visual medium, that it's held up all these years as an audible experience?
Yes, and I think you get that with the promotion for the radio dramas, where they would say, you've seen the movie, wait until you hear it. And that's the power behind something that's auditory. You are the director. So you're using your imagination to, direct the action. You're conjuring what people look like, where they're going. So when you're using your imagination like that, I think it really sticks in your memory, in your long-term memory.
And I think the writing of it was just so incredibly good, done by Brian Daley. And, he was, as the book kind of talks about, he was one of us. He was a fan. He was a fan of not just Star Wars, although he said he was flabbergasted when he saw it and that it transformed him. But he had been a fan his whole life of science fiction. He liked Star Trek. He liked the Marvel comics. He was the kid in the neighborhood with all the comic books that everybody would come over and read his books. And he understood Star Wars. And I think that his there's always that debate now, I think, do you bring in writers who don't know anything about Star Wars, or do you bring in writers who who grew up with it, who had a love of it? And I think with Brian's case, certainly it was advantageous to him that he understood that universe so well, and that it's one of the reasons why it fits seamlessly even now, even with all the different years that have gone by. It just seems like it belongs there, all of it.
Even with his first books, the Han Solo trilogy, he really clicked with that world, with those characters. And that's why, that's one of the reasons why he was chosen to write the scripts.
Yeah, and he certainly had a great feel for Han Solo dialogue. He would always deliver us the Han Solo we were expecting, as if Harrison Ford himself was writing the dialogue. And what's great about the book is the amount of respect you do pay to Brian Daley throughout. It's not just about the stars who worked on the radio dramas like Mark Hamill, Anthony Daniels, Billy D. Williams, etc., but you also pull back the curtain on Brian Daley's life and what kind of guy he was. Was there anything in your research that seemed to really strike you about the man, that really maybe surprised you about him?
Yeah, it really is a tribute to him. One of my favorite stories is, so after high school, he went into the military, and when he's out of the military, he comes back to the United States and he goes to college. And he's taking his SATs 5 years after he was in high school, so around the same time that his sister was taking them. And his sister says that she got a call from the counselor to come down to the office, and they wanted to know how he, after being out of school for 5 years, could get a perfect score on the written portion and a near perfect score on the math. And it's just a testament to he was very smart. And I also think his experience in the military, where he wrote military reports, helps him with the the jargon, the military language in his books.
And I think for me, there were sort of two things. One was the fact that it really is sort of a biography of Brian and a biography of the radio dramas at the same time, kind of a making of Brian and the making of the radio dramas. But it was to me, one of the things that surprised me was, as we got really into his story, is how entwined Star Wars was with his life and death. And Anthony Daniels just gave a really beautiful tribute to him within the book, but he really talks about Anthony, how his death at the same moment, literally they're finishing Return of the Jedi's radio drama, which they had all waited 13 years to make, was tragic and sad and beautiful all at the same time. And to see how he never gave up on Star Wars. It wasn't just, the 3 Han Solo books and the radio dramas. That's enough. But he also contributed, Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell. He contributed behind the scenes on a lot of projects. And he was going to be Timothy Zahn. That was one of the big surprises for me as a Star Wars fan, that, not that I would want to ever replace the Thrawn trilogy. I mean, that was fantastic. But when it looked like, when there was a debate about which publisher was going to be the one to bring back the Star Wars in print, as we sort of start moving and inching towards the special editions and bringing back Star Wars to the public consciousness and getting out of the dark ages and the dark times. Yeah. The dark times. He was ready to go, and he was the guy who was going to be it if it was going to return to Del Rey. And he had a whole story mapped out, and to learn what the details were of that were just fascinating. It wasn't just, okay, I'll wait to do it. I mean, he was always pitching. He wrote ideas for the Droids TV show, which, had it gone on, would have been produced. It just didn't go on enough episodes. And he would have been in sort of the second group of episodes that would have been made. And
I think he wrote like five scripts.
It was like 5 scripts for that, for an arc. Because it was just, so that was really interesting to see how Star Wars was sort of always there, even if, he wasn't necessarily, the ideas weren't catching on or weren't getting made.
Something that really surprised me is the story about actor John Houseman and his relationship with Frank Mankiewicz, who was the president of NPR, and his motivation, I guess, for kind of supporting this idea was that he thought it might be kind of scandalous. Is that true? Because maybe you tell the story, but it was going to offend maybe fans because it was such a well-known visual story.
Yeah, NPR was when you get to really right around the time Star Wars is hitting theaters. You have Frank Mankiewicz taking over NPR. Frank was sort of the perfect person to do it. He knew politics. He had been RFK's press secretary. He was the one who announced to the world that he had been assassinated. And came out and talked to the press. He understood the world of Washington, and he understood entertainment. His dad, of course, was famous for working with Orson Welles and with Citizen Kane and all these other wonderful projects. And so he understood both worlds. And for NPR, they needed that because NPR was totally reliant at that time on public dollars, government funds. And it was hurting. It was,
radio dramas in general were fading. There were only like 3. There was Airplay,
CBS,
CBS,
had
Mystery
a couple,
Theater,
Mystery Theater.
And NPR. That was it.
That's a very interesting fact to point out. Is, I mean, there are no radio dramas now. I mean, what we get maybe via audiobooks or through sources like audible.com, what have you. But back in the day, obviously, before television, radio dramas were all the rage. Everything was being played out over the radio waves. And then that, of course, faded away. And I find it really incredible that there were any other radio dramas in production during the time of the era in which the Star Wars radio dramas appeared on NPR. I thought to myself, actually flashing back to that era in the early 90s, I thought the radio dramas were all but dead. My dad had a collection of old-time radio shows, Fibber, McGee and Molly, The Lone Rangers, Superman. So I was excited for the experience based on the things that went on in the 30s and 40s. But that's really interesting. I had no idea that there were actually other radio dramas still in production as late as the early 80s.
Yeah, the Airplay was really the reason they decided to see if there was another type of radio drama that could be produced. So Frank's idea was to beef up. Well, he had 3 ideas really among many, but 3 that were important. One was to seek out corporate sponsorship, which now, of course, public radio and television does, and no one thinks twice about it. But that was hugely controversial at the time. And also he thought of increasing NPR's news focus, because really the only thing people were listening to the radio for in the 70s was music and news, sports news, that kind of thing.
Otherwise it was on for background.
Yeah. Otherwise it was background. And then they had some success with Earplay, which was directed by John Madden, who would go on to direct the radio dramas. And the sound editing and sound design by Tom Vagley, who would, of course, go on to work on the Star Wars radio dramas as well. And so it was Frank really thinking, well, geez, can we do something like Earplay? What can we do with that? So he turns to his dad's old friend, John Houseman, who we all know, of course, as the grandpa on Silver Spoons, and some other things. That he did. There he is, right? Yeah. Some other little small projects that he did. But of course,
I just remember him from that commercial where he said, "They earn it."
Yes, the old-fashioned way.
Yeah.
The old-fashioned way. They earn it.
And he was on the Fembots episodes of Bionic Woman and 6 Million Dollar Man. But
deep cut.
Yeah. So, but he was, obviously amazingly talented actor. But he was a producer on the War of the Worlds radio dramas with Orson Welles, and he came back with that experience. So when Frank Mankiewicz says, "Well, what do you think we should do?" he says, "Well, I know a guy at USC his name is Richard Toscan. He was a dean who was doing radio dramas locally there." And he might have an idea. And that's kind of where the whole thing starts. And when Richard Toscan asked this John Houseman, who was the sort of art advisor, I guess you could say, for students at USC at the time, when he asked him, John, what do you think we should do? Houseman said, whatever you do, you need to create a scandal. And what he was thinking of was the scandal of War of the Worlds. He was thinking of, if you're going to get people to pay attention to this idea, it has to be something where they're going to think you're crazy for doing it, or it's insulting, or something. It had to be controversial. And they struggled for a long time trying to come up with something that would be controversial, until Joe Rosenwig, a former student, stops by, who was the first person to ever convert Tommy into a rock opera. He was the guy who came up with the idea for that. And
the stage show.
It was
right?
The stage show. It was performed at USC for the very first time under his sort of, his direction, his idea. And he was sort of back visiting. He had gone to school with George Lucas, knew George Lucas there, They were alum together. But he had said, why don't you do Star Wars? Literally just came out with that idea, do Star Wars. And Toscan knew at that moment that was the idea, because let's take a movie that's got 27 minutes of dialogue and turn it into a 13-episode radio drama.
I've never heard that stat, clocking the dialogue in Star Wars. That's crazy.
Minutes.
Wow.
And then turning it into 6.5 hours.
Dang.
Without a narrator.
That's a really impressive twist.
Ken Hiller comes in. Yeah, Ken Hiller comes in at the beginning. Mm-hmm. That was Brian, and that was also Richard Toscan. Have a narrator come in at the start, catch you up, and take you out. And no narrator, no Luke grabs his lightsaber. No narration like you would ever think of. Absolutely.
Meanwhile, back at the Lars homestead, none of that stuff going on. It was as if the narrator functioned very much as the crawl you see prior to the movie and as the credits as they roll after the movie. The narrators serve the exact same purpose, but the core of the audio drama was sans narrator. And that's always been the most impressive aspect of these radio dramas to me, because inspired by the Brian Daley radio dramas, myself, Kyle Newman, F.J. DeSanto, Jason, we all worked on this incredible live audio drama that we performed 3 times at Star Wars Celebration. We called it the Smugglers series, and it was very much based on the Brian Daley Han Solo novels. Han Solo himself was the star player in all 3 of these radio dramas, and they were all originally written by FJ and Kyle and produced by me. And it was, I think, the most challenging aspect of it was going without a narrator, and we realized we couldn't pull it off. It takes a very special production and a very special writer to be able to pull off something like that. It may look easy on paper, but when you try doing it in front of a crowd of 5,000 people, you need a narrator. So we hired the great Tom Kane to serve in that role, and we couldn't have asked for anyone better. But that's always been the thing that has most impressed me about the audio dramas produced by NPR, written by Brian Daley, is that there was no narration.
Yeah, and he would carry that on when the Rebel Mission to Ord Mantell was actually pitched as several different ideas before it became what it became, which was we kind of considered episode 0 of Empire Strikes Back radio drama. It's sort of this really kids record. It doesn't have the original actors in it, but it has some really great people in there.
Corey Burton, of course.
Corey Burton, yes, of course, and just doing a fantastic Luke. But he kept to that same principle, and narration at the start, narration at the end, and no narration. And for a kid's record, that was quite a feat that they were able to accomplish that.
So they relied very heavily on atmosphere, environmental effects in all of that. How much access did they have to, say, Ben Burtt's library of effects, or were they creating a lot of new stuff?
Well, Lucas, they donated all the music. You want to tell the story about how
sure.
On the plane?
Yeah, so they had the George gives the rights to NPR and really to KUSC, which was where Richard Toscan was at USC, and of course George's alma mater. As really as an act of philanthropy, which is really a theme throughout the book, how this whole project was of the heart more than it was of anything else. The actors didn't get paid a lot. They all did it because they believed in what the project was. An interesting experiment. Can it be done from an artistic point of view? But also, we want to give Star Wars to people who don't have the money to see it. Kids maybe, or for whatever reason, someone who's sick who can't leave their house, and they can get the story of Star Wars. And that was part of the really a lot of what George's motivation for was it. So he gave the rights away for $1. That included the rights to the story and to all the sound effects,
all the marketing,
and they had to they had to negotiate separately for the music because it was owned by 20th Century Fox Music, and they charged significantly more, the whopping sum of $1 per episode. So it was only $12. It was like $12, $13. That was about
12
it.
and some change. Yeah. Rounded up to $13.
Yeah, they did the same thing.
That John Williams, such a greedy guy, charging $13 for what George did. What George, $1? Jeez.
No, they donated him to. That would actually cause problems later when they did Return of the Jedi, because it turned out that's fine from the corporate ownership side, but the musicians union, did not like that, and so the music wound up eventually costing more. But they knew they needed John Williams music to make it work, and they knew they needed Ben Burtt's sound effects. So Tom Vailey went to go pick up the sound effects from Ben, who one of the questions he asked him was, well, how do you think I did they were chit-chatting back and forth. And Tom was a little nervous because he thought, well, gee, Ben Burtt, here's some, thinking, here's this guy from, public radio, Minnesota, is coming and taking my sound effects, right? And going to copy them, it's just, but he was very generous and very kind, Tom told us. And he said, he asked him, do you know where the sound comes from of the Ark, where I got that from, the Ark, when the Ark opens?
Oh, the Ark of the Covenant from Indiana Jones.
He said, Tom said yes. Tom took a guess, and Ben said very, very close. So he took him to the bathroom because it was the lid of the toilet at Lucasfilm. So,
was it George's toilet or just the common toilet, the community toilet? Okay.
I hope he saved that toilet seat.
Yeah, so he took the sound effects with him on an airplane, and what he did was he kind of took a riff on what musicians do, where they'll, if you have a cello, you're not going to be separated from your cello, so you actually buy a ticket for your cello under the name Mr. or Mrs. Cello, and that's what he did. He bought a ticket for the sound effects so he could keep them with him and put it under that name of Mr. Cello.
Wow. And the toilet seat. He took the toilet seat too. Did Ben ever get the toilet seat back? Ben still he needs his toilet back. He's been hovering over the bowl for all these years. But I'll tell you what, man, the book is outstanding. It's the Star Wars radio dramas, Brian Daley and the serialization that saved NPR. And it's written by Maria Jose Tenuto and John Tenuto, great Illinois residents now transplanted in Iowa. And really, it's the Bible, I think, for anyone who's interested in the Star Wars radio dramas. And we really appreciate it. However, we can't let you go without presenting you with a series of questions that any fan of the Star Wars franchise can answer. They are not trivia questions. These are questions that will tap deep into your soul as a Star Wars fan. And only you can provide the answers. There are no wrong answers. But and to add a little bit of pressure, you have to understand, these questions were faxed to us from Dagobah by Yoda, the Jedi Master himself. This is the Yoda questionnaire.
The Yoda questionnaire.
That's right. That's right. No, this is not trivia, because that would be trivial. And there's nothing trivial about questions prepared by the Jedi Master himself, Jedi Master Yoda. As Jimmy said, there's no wrong answers, but there are answers that are more right than others.
I love that
you can do this however you'd like. You can each answer the same question, or you can volley back and forth, however you prefer to do this. Maybe, John, you want to send all of the hard questions to Maria? Perhaps. But we'll start off with we'll start off with an easy one here. They get harder. First question, as provided by Yoda himself, who or what, in the interest of inclusivity here, who or what is your favorite Star Wars character?
Yoda.
Oh, wow. Maria didn't even hesitate. Yoda.
Yoda.
Oh,
Yoda's
are you
always-
trying to kiss up to Yoda since he sent the questions over?
No, it's because he's small and size matters not.
There you go. That's what I live by.
What about you, John?
I'm a Luke Skywalker guy. I've always been.
Well,
Not that I don't
there's nothing
love him,
wrong with
so
that
I
around
don't-
here. Both of you are naming two characters which to me provide some very vital internal organs to the Star Wars story. And I don't think anyone can fault you for those two decisions.
Agreed. All right, we're going to journey over to the dark side of the Force with our next question. Who or what is your least favorite Star Wars character? Least favorite. Oh, Maria didn't have a quick answer for this one.
No,
She's thinking.
I've never thought about that, but I would say Maz Kanata. Oh, on the dark side, you mean?
Well, it doesn't
Or it
have
could
to
be
be a
anything.
dark side character, but thinking
Right.
about who your least favorite character is kind of a dark side thought. But it does not have
It's
to
a
be a
personal
dark side
preference.
character. Yeah.
I would say Maz Kanata because they don't finish her story.
They sure
So
don't.
to me, it just irritates me that it's like just left there.
They barely set it up. And at the end of the movie, you're wondering why she was even there in the first place.
Exactly.
How did she get Luke's lightsaber? This is frustrating stuff. Why is her head that of a kumquat? This is stuff I need to know.
I don't
Thank you.
like this. I don't like having stuff hanging like that.
I was going to say an answer that I think Mary Jo's going to agree with too, which is similarly for the same reason, which is Snoke. I felt they didn't do anything, and they didn't do enough with that character. There was potential, and it could have been very interesting. And it was just gone, and then no resonance really through the story. The rest of the story didn't really matter to the story.
Well,
And the Knights of Ren, you can't see them, and then you look at the books and you're like, wow, look at all the detail, and oh, they have names. It's like we didn't get any of that in the movie.
Yeah, I mean, we love reading. We love reading the books, but I don't think you should have to read the book in order to. It shouldn't be where, in order to understand the film, for my parents when they were alive, they saw all the Star Wars movies with me until they passed away. They didn't need to see the books to understand the first 6. But I think sometimes, and maybe even the first 7, Force Awakens you could understand Force Awakens and all the characters in there, but it's kind of a setup. But I think the other two is sort of like, you shouldn't have to read a book to understand who the Knights of Ren are, or to kinds of details.
Film really needs to stand on its own. And this is the major pitfall that Hollywood franchise filmmaking has fallen into over the last decade and a half, is it gets crushed under the weight of its own mythology. And it requires a huge admission fee for you mentally before you even set foot in the theater. And I don't think that filmmaking should exclude huge chunks of the audience, but yet that's what's happened, and the box office has reflected that. So I agree with you. And Snoke also. At the end of the day, we're not even sure he was even a character. He was just an avatar for Palpatine.
He was a meat puppet. And they don't even lean into that enough, because that's kind of an interesting idea. What if Hux and the rest of them found out that this guy that they had been subservient to all these years, what if they found out that he was, like Max said, just an avatar for a darker force? They could have leaned into that a little bit more, but it was just kind of literally he was brushed aside.
Great answers, guys. Great answers.
Yes, for sure. Okay. Now, you both are authors. You're both teachers, professors. But we've never really seen those jobs in the Star Wars universe, the galaxy far, far away. I assume they probably exist. But what job in the Star Wars universe, other than your own, would you most like to have?
The Jedi Archivist.
You want to be Jocasta Nu?
Archivist. I said that wrong. Archivist.
Okay.
Archivist.
Either way, it's tomato.
You know all the secrets. You know all the information.
So Mary Jo is the new Jocasta Nu. Yes. Right? There you go. And you know what?
Yeah, I want to know.
You'd have a lot more personality than old Jocasta. I think she was pretty cold.
Swank just says, hey, you never hung out with Jacasa on a Saturday night in Curacao.
No, she just gave me the fines.
You don't
for my
know what
overdue
you're
books.
talking about. Yeah, when she was out of that library, though, she was a wild child, man. You couldn't keep up with her.
John, how about you? What profession in the Star Wars universe would you like to have?
Well, I think I would, I think there are teachers in the sense of the Jedi can be teachers, but I couldn't, if I'm going to have to choose one that isn't that, I couldn't be a Jedi teacher in some ways. I think I would like to be somebody who works sort of on the ships. I don't have that talent or ability. So if I get to be in another galaxy, I presume I'm going to have skills I don't have in the real world. And I think
nice.
I think it'd be cool to say, to flip around like Han Solo does, and give me this and give me that. I want a linear dampener. I want all that stuff, crazy stuff. I think that'd be kind of fun to fix the ships and work on the ships and make them faster. And
like you could hang out with Peli Moto when the Mando swings by and fix his ship.
Yeah, get this man a hydro spanner.
Yeah, I need a hydro spanner on my head.
What?
The Anzellans, I work with them. That would be cool. Work with the Anzellans.
So tiny.
Bad babies, no squeezing.
Yeah. Yes. Our listeners know that to them as the Babu freaks. What profession or job would you least like to have in the Star Wars universe? There's a lot of bad jobs, or as Mike Rowe would say, dirty jobs.
The dirty jobs, the people who have to follow the Caduceus. Is that how you say it?
Oh, yeah, the Caduceus.
Oh, yeah, the farting Caduceus.
Post equestrian maintenance engineer.
Yeah, and anyone who works on a Death Star would be a bad job. That's generally, I think, any Death Star related job. It doesn't have a long
that's a very low ceiling there on your career. It's just when you think things are going well, it's over. So, yeah,
all right.
Not much room for upward mobility there.
I have one last question, and we like to tailor this to who it is we're talking to. And since you both are authors and historians and professors, if there was to be the definitive story of George Lucas and his creation of Star Wars, and he asked you both to write it, this is definitive now. This is out of George's own lips to your ears onto paper. What would you like to hear him say to you as he reads the last manuscript?
Well, we've had a little bit of not quite exactly that level of that in the Star Trek world with some of our Star Trek books. And
what did you write, and who were you dealing with?
Well, we're working on one now. We can't talk about, but we just finished last year, September 2023. It was out. We did the official making of Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan book. It's a beautiful picture book filled with pictures never before seen or rare photos. I mean, they were seen by someone, but never before seen by the public. Photos. We got to interview, Nick Meyer, who's similar role in that world to George as a director and writer, and
in that era,
it was it was a wonderful book to work on. The best thing I could tell you when it's sort of what we got from a lot of the people, Perry King and Anthony Daniels and stuff. It's just any good word, any sort of like, I kind of want to be Babe the Pig. I want him to look down at me and say, that'll do. That's good.
That'll do.
That'll do.
That'll do. Because I think because that sounds like something that's a big compliment for George. Like I could hear him saying that.
Yeah, that's effusive for George Lucas.
Right.
The thing about telling any of these stories, whether it was the radio dramas or Star Trek or whatever, is so much time has passed. And we've lost so many people. Obviously, we couldn't write this with Brian. We had to rely on Brian's family, which were tremendously supportive. In fact, I brought this just to show real fast. This is actually Brian's copy.
Yeah.
The
Oh,
fans
wow.
that-
You have his book. I have that book on my shelves as well. Not Brian's copy, but
this is Brian's, and his widow signed it to us as if she was Brian. And it's just a treasure to have those three. We have all three of them she gave us, to be able to go through his archives and so on. But boy, to have been, I would have given my right arm to talk to Brian and interview him and get his take on things, because there's nothing like talking to the person. When we spoke with Perry or Ann Sachs or John Madden or Tom Vagley or Anthony Daniels, I mean, they were there, and they could tell us their remembrances, their thoughts, their feelings. But it's so hard because when you lose the fulcrum person, when you lose when you lose a Leonard Nimoy, if you're doing a Star Trek piece, or you lose Ryan Daly and you're talking about the radio dramas, all you can sort of do is hint around the edges,
Yeah.
And I would love. I mean, I think J.W. Rinsler kind of did the definitive, in my opinion, of the making of all three. But I would love to know what George thinks of Star Wars now, unfiltered. Not just the Star Wars that's being made now, but the Star Wars he made.
Yeah, right.
As a person looking at it from a different perspective, and you get some interviews now and again, but that's very different than.
Yeah, it changes for us as fans, as viewers of the films, as we age and get into different phases of our life. It would be interesting to hear his take on it.
For our audio podcast listeners, I want them to know that the book you were holding up was the Star Wars radio dramatization script, the radio play, and it was printed up by Del Rey, I think back in the 90s.
Yeah.
And it takes Brian's script from the radio drama and offers some footnotes and some behind-the-scenes information. It's a great book. I think it's out of print, but I'm sure you could find it. I have my copy right here, and it goes perfectly with the Star Wars radio dramas and the two books hand in hand. I mean, this is all you need to know when it comes to the history of the NPR Star Wars radio dramas. And the Star Wars radio dramas did sort of take on this air of legend for a while, because they weren't available commercially for about a decade and a half before they started showing up in cassette and CD form that you could purchase. And so, like the holiday special, it became this sort of elusive, hard to obtain slice of Star Wars history for a number of us old timers from the original trilogy era. And so once we finally got it, we've been able to sink our teeth into it. But, my teeth, your teeth, everyone's teeth.
Tomato.
It reminds me very much about how Kyle Newman and his crew produced the documentary about the Star Wars holiday special that just came out late last year. Your book offers a companionship piece to those radio dramas. And both of those things were things I believed as a Star Wars fan were going to be lost to time forever. I dug up some old low bias Radio Shack cassette dubs I made off of NPR back in '81 when they originally aired. And wow. I still think I have them somewhere. I completely missed Empire and Jedi. I was just, I guess I wasn't on the bus or something, but those were elusive for me. And to be able to now purchase them, where would you guys recommend our listeners go to obtain the Star Wars radio dramas?
Well, unfortunately, right now they're not being sold. They were on Audible for a while. But they're not on Audible right now. The best way is to just check eBay and try to get your hands on one of the two. Sort of there's different versions. There's different collections of them. Now Topps did a really wonderful MP3 kind of version of it back about 6 years ago or so. It's fantastic covers. Randy Martinez did a cover, I know. So, but it would definitely be something you'd have to get on the second market, and check it out. And you want to try to, try to get yourself all three. And if you can, get yourself the complete versions of it. There's different ones, but some of them have bonus features, like the commercials, like the message they made to Brian when he was sick. He never got to hear it. He died the night they finished it. They did play it at his memorial service, and it was all written by the actors themselves with the help of John Madden. In fact, Josh Farden, who plays Luke in Jedi, he sort of needed a little help with his. So some of it's written by Tom and John Madden, but Anthony Daniels wrote his own, and they're all just beautiful little tributes to Brian that were done as the characters. And then they would break out from the character into being, hey, this is Perry and Ann, we love you, Brian, that kind of stuff. And it was just a tremendous gift to the family, they said, at that time. And you can find those. They have that on that as well. If you have Steve Sansweet's Vault's book, Star Wars Vault, the one that comes with some CDs, they do have some of the making of that was done. There was actually a radio making of that was done, about a half an hour radio documentary, audio documentary on it, and that's featured on those CDs too, if people have that.
Perfect.
Right, there you go.
Something for our listeners to search out. Get the physical copies if you can via secondary dealers, secondary market, or search out the MP3s. People are always trading stuff online. You might be able to find it, or YouTube. Seems like everything ends up on YouTube these days. So it shouldn't be that hard to track this stuff down, and it's well worth your time.
Well, you mentioned that you've got another Star Trek book in the works, and you can't give the details of that, but is there anything in a galaxy far, far away in your near or intermediate futures?
Well, we're doing a few library talks next year. We're doing one for the Grays Lake, Illinois Historical Society. We're going to be doing it remotely. We planned it all before we moved.
That's in April.
They have a really wonderful exhibit going on, kind of about popular culture during the 70s and 80s, and we're going to be talking about Star Wars with them. We're doing another one for, I can't remember which library. We're doing one for another library. If people want to follow us on Facebook or just be friends on Facebook, if they just look up John Tenuto, we sort of share an account. And we'll always put up if we're doing library talk or something. And we just did one a few weeks ago about kind of the Star Wars through newspapers, which is, we hope, going to be our next Star Wars project, which is analog, called Analog Star Wars, which is basically taking a look at fandom and the phenomenon of Star Wars as told through newspapers. And we did research on about 2,000 newspapers, and
there's some great stories.
Great stories, wow. Great stuff, and a lot of myth busting about what we thought or what we remember as being true and not necessarily.
Well, famously, there were some barbs traded with the whole Dave Prowse and leaking the details of the big reveal in Empire Strikes Back. That was all in the newspapers at the time and things like that. Oh, yeah. So yeah, that's definitely some good Star Wars goss in that book. That'll be great. But in the meantime, thank you both so much for being here, and thank you for archiving and being the historians for this galaxy far, far away that we love so much, both in universe, out of universe. Because if it wasn't for you guys, with, like you said, with the passing of these folks, we wouldn't have these histories. So thank you very much for doing that, and thanks for being on RFR.
Thank you. It's been fun.
Thank you. It's great to see you guys.
All right. Take care.
Chewie, get us out of here!
All right, that's going to wrap things up here this week on Rebel Force Radio. Still more from D23 to get to. We'll be bringing that to you next week. But big thanks to the Tenutos dropping by the Cantina, the Star Wars radio dramas. Their latest book is available now wherever fine books are sold and found. If you're a fan of the radio dramas, or if you've never checked out the radio dramas, you need to do that. It's really worth it. I know what some people are thinking, well, why would I do that? Star Wars is so visual and Star Wars. It's a time capsule, but it's also going to impress you of what a great production it really is. So this is not Little Orphan Annie stuff here. This isn't The Shadow from the 1940s. Star Wars we're talking about. Yeah,
drink more Ovaltine.
If you need more Rebel Force Radio in your life, and why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go over to rebelforceradio.com and check out all the offerings that are available over on Patreon? That's right, over on Patreon at rebelforceradio.com. You can click on that Patreon banner and be taken over in a flash over to the Patreon website where you can sign up. Sign up at the level that you feel comfortable, that fits your budget. And there are benefits for all of the different tiers, but the main benefit is that you get access to Rebel Force Radio podcasts that you can't find just anywhere else. That's right. You got things like the RFR Q&A, and the latest one up here I'm looking at says Star Wars from the UK to the USA. Jim, what's this all about?
Yeah. This is a great conversation I had with RFR VIP Martin from London. And Martin is a really great guy. And he knows how much I love Star Wars comic books. But the Star Wars monthly comic books that were released in the UK back during the 70s and 80s were vastly different from the stories that Marvel was telling. And so Martin sent me this great book that compiles everything from Star Wars Monthly that was only available to fans.
Oh, wow.
In the
So
UK.
totally different stories.
Yeah.
Wow.
He gave me a whole huge book, a 700-plus page hardcover book that collects all of the UK Star Wars Monthly magazines, including the articles and all the stories. And it is something that it's probably one of the best Star Wars books I ever got.
Wow.
And so me and Martin talk about that. Yeah. We talk about that. We just talk about fans having something in common despite an ocean separating us. And that thing we have in common is a love for Star Wars. I mean, George Lucas wrote and created Star Wars in America, but he shot it in London. And I think that did a lot to establish the fan bases in both countries. And both America and England can claim Star Wars as their own to a certain degree. And I really like that. And so me and Martin bond over that. We talk about all kind of things. So it's a good time. RFR Q&A number 214. And if you join RFR on Patreon, you get access to every episode of RFR Q&A. And there's, like I said, 214 of them. They're available to every supporter of Rebel Force Radio on Patreon. So don't hesitate. Show no mercy. Support Rebel Force Radio and get access to a ton of great bonus content. Bonus podcasts, ad-free shows, full show video, and so much more can be found at patreon.com/Rebel Force Radio.
And if video is your thing, you can check us out over on YouTube. We got a lot of clips, highlights from Rebel Force Radio going back many, many years. But please like, subscribe, and follow us over there on YouTube. We are, without a doubt, the #1 Star Wars podcast in the galaxy. We'd love to have more support and help over there on the YouTube. So give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a follow. Helps other people discover the show. And we'll be back in December with a whole new season of Rebel Force Radio after shows, looking at Skeleton Crew. We're also available on all of the, the usual social media platforms. We got Facebook and X/Twitter and Instagram, and the official website for all things and everything, Rebel Force Radio, rebelforceradio.com. So if you just need, I don't know where to go, I just found this podcast. They've been around for so long. How do I orient myself? Rebel Force Radio is a great place to do it. You can search for different guest names, find episodes. If you love FJ DeSanto, just go to the website, search for FJ, and you can find out when our potty mouth prophet has been on the show, Kyle Newman. And last week, wow, what a great guest with Katie Sackhoff. That was awesome. Bo-Katan from Mandalorian. Really cool stuff. But if you want to really help us, just do what you're doing right now, which is great, which is listening to the podcast, recommending it to your friends, your family, Star Wars fans in your life. So please subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review if your podcatcher of choice allows you to do so. We make it simple, just one rule. Bake them good. All right, we'll see you next week for more Rebel Force Radio, your source for the Force and so much more. But until then, for RFR, I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.
Rebel Force Radio, baby!